Belgrano is the new champion of Argentine football. Belgrano ended up beating River 3-2 in this final, which was held in Cordoba at the Mario Alberto Kempes, and ends up being crowned champion of Argentine football. Champion of the 2026 Apertura, the first of the two tournaments that Argentine football will have throughout 2026. Well, Belgrano ends up being champion, and Belgrano ends up being crowned in what turned out to be a truly incredible final. Because whenever it seemed like one of the two had the match under control, the other one would score a goal. Because at the beginning, Belgrano had positioned themselves very well. They had set themselves up very well in the first few minutes. And quickly, River scores to make it 1-0. River makes it 1-0 with a good play on the left, a cutback, and the finish by Colon. Honestly, Belgrano had started the match on the right foot. It's not like Belgrano started the match and completely overwhelmed River, but they did start well. The truth is, Belgrano starting the first part of the match wasn't bad at all. Then the equalizer comes. The equalizer comes at a moment when River seemed to have the match under control. Great cross from Chelarayan, who for me was one of the standout players of the match. The cross comes in. Morales heads it. A great header. The truth is, there was very little Beltran could do about this header, because the cross came almost right to the near post. Morales, the former Gimnasia de la Plata player, ends up heading it, and he scores with a powerful header bouncing off the ground and across the goal. The River goalkeeper couldn't get to it. Now in the second half, the game slowed down a bit because aside from River's goal, which came a bit early, well, not that early, but it did come at a key moment. The pace dropped. It was a moment when you might not have expected the game to open up, because compared to the first half, the second half was a bit weaker. It ended up being less intense. Now, in the second half, a lot happens at the end, because in the first 20 minutes, up until River's goal, it was clear that both teams came out playing at a slower pace. I don't know if it's fatigue, or maybe, of course, a bit of fear of losing. That's always there. In a final, because just as there's one who wins and one who loses, there's that fear of letting slip what you've achieved, and also the fact that as the minutes go by, there's less and less room for error. Well, I think both teams were trying to make it to the end of the match still in the game, and in this gamble, it ended up working out for Belgrano, even though River ended up taking the lead about halfway through the second half. Basta! A great play by Colidio, which honestly until the final minutes, when the Cordoba team tied, because after Belgrano's equalizer, they also made it 3-2. And honestly, we could say that for 80 out of the 90 minutes for everyone watching the match, the standout player was Colidio. He had been a key player and crucial in River's 2 goals that gave them the lead over Belgrano. Well, the match ends up changing radically. The match takes a complete 360-degree turn so that Colidio stops being the standout player and someone else takes that role. And we're also going to talk a bit about what happened. Cerrarlo. The end of the match. Now, regarding what happened at the end of the game, it has to be said that after that goal, River started to feel like they just wanted to close it out. River wanted to close out the match. River wanted to finish the game. And at one point, you could feel that. You could feel the need to just stop playing, to end it, to try to defend this league. Well, it ended up going badly for River. It ended up going badly for River because at the end of the match, in that eagerness to try to secure the victory, that's when it slipped away from them. Because at the 84th and 87th minutes, Belgrano scored both goals, one from a penalty, a correctly awarded penalty. I think it ends up being an irresponsibility by Rivero, River's defender, who honestly had also been involved in the defeat of River in the derby, causing that penalty that allowed Boca to win the Super Clásico. And now, once again, Rivero being involved in the defeat. In this case, it was 2-2, but what happens once it was already 2-2? Nicolas Fernandez had already come in, replacing Pacerini. At that point, Belgrano had already taken the risk as they were losing and needed to chase an equalizer. Obviously, it's also difficult from the perspective of both benches, both Rivers and Belgrano's, because since it's not just a 90-minute match you risk, basically tying the game and ending up with an unbalanced team for extra time, or trying to secure the result and practically being left without offensive players for what will be extra time later. Well, in this effort, it ends up working out well for Belgrano because not only do they bring in attacking players, but they also win the match in a span of 5 minutes. At the 84th minute, Belgrano scores the equalizer. And at the 87th minute, they score to make it 3-2. And Belgrano, like the hammer that finally comes down, the result ends up feeling like the final score because there were only a few minutes left, even though almost 8 minutes of stoppage time were added. I don't think it's wrong since there was a VAR review and substitutions to consider. I believe the 8 minutes were fair. But even with 8 more minutes, 8 minutes that were really almost 11, taking into account from Belgrano's goal until the end of the match, honestly, it didn't feel like River could tie it. Even so, River had a great chance that Morales ended up clearing, because otherwise it was a header that was going straight to the goal. But the feeling is that after Belgrano's goal, the match was over. Because there was little time left. And it wasn't a match where they attacked that much. In terms of clear chances, it wasn't a match where both teams created 7 goal opportunities. No. There were more approaches than anything else. In fact, if we look back, there weren't any great saves by the goalkeepers. It was a great final that both River and Belgrano gave us. A final with 5 goals, which is really impressive for a final considering how tight Argentine football is and how close finals usually are. If we look back at the recent finals in Argentine football, there have been very few goals. Estudiants and Racing finished 1-1. Platense won 1-0. River and Belgrano delivered a great final with the Cordoba side winning the title. Champion of Argentine football, and deservedly so. They truly earned the title of... They have it because in the playoffs they did the job they had to do because they ended up beating Talleres, because they ended up eliminating them. They beat Union and Argentinos, alternating between home and away matches. The truth is that they are a deserved champion. Obviously, when it comes to Argentine football, we can talk about a lot of things, like the fact that basically the team that finished 9th in the overall standings ended up as champion. But that's another topic. Now, when things get tough, when the important matches are played, starting from the playoffs, Belgrano played, Belgrano won, and they end up securing this spot. They end up winning this title, this Apertura, and qualify for the next Copa Libertadores. Belgrano qualifies for the next Copa Libertadores against River, no less. Belgrano ends up winning their first league, their first Argentine football league. They had been champions of the Primera Nacional back when they achieved promotion. They had sent River down to the 2nd division, and when River returned to the 2nd division, in the first match they faced each other, and now they beat them in a final. And I think today as well, it's not just a matter of respect, but I think with this title, Belgrano also ends up raising their status in Argentine football. Raising their status because you have to win a final against River, even though it ended up being in Cordoba, and that also gives it another twist. Maybe River wasn't so neutral. Maybe they were more like the away team than on neutral ground. Está programada en el comienzo del playoff. But that doesn't end up being more than just a coincidence because the venue is predetermined at the start of the playoffs. It was Belgrano's time to reach the final. Nothing you can do. If Central Cordoba had made the last final, same thing. That's just how it is. Belgrano is the Argentine soccer champion, beating River fair and square in a great final. They gave us a great final and a great match in the last match of the Apertura, the last match of Argentine football before the World Cup. And that's how it is. The Pirate from Cordoba is the new champion of the Apertura. As always, I invite you to leave a like, leave your comment, subscribe to the Falso 9 TV channel as always, and we'll surely see each other again in the next video, in the next reaction. So we invite everyone to support the channel. Leave a like, leave your comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.